Welcome to Education Forum program. My name is Maureen Natukunda. The government of Uganda, through the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development, is working closely with the civil society organizations and international agencies to support people with disabilities. Children with a hearing impairment are among the category of these very people. Kentalis, a Dutch organization supporting people with hearing impairment in the areas of care and education, is spearheading a campaign dubbed Early Interventions, aimed at helping children with hearing impairment attain education and access facilities at an early stage. Recently, they trained Chambogo University, National Curriculum Development Center, as well as parents on how to communicate effectively with the deaf children.
I'm now here as a trainer because we have a project about early intervention, and it's my task to share my knowledge and add it to the situation in Uganda, because early intervention is a topic which is very important in this country. It's developing, that we try to create awareness that if a deaf child is born, it has to go to school as soon as possible. The parents have to be supported at home to build up a good communication with the child. And like in many countries, it's not quite common that that happens. So we try to contribute with our training to awareness and knowledge and skills for professionals here to offer family-centered early intervention in Uganda as well. We now have a training of 4 days, and we are talking about 4 topics. The first day we shared knowledge about early intervention in general. What is the concept? What do we mean by that? The second day we talked about early intervention, especially for the deaf and hard of hearing children. And there is a new international consensus statement for this group, and we are talking about family-centered early intervention. It means that it's very important that the family and the parents are involved in the early intervention. So yesterday and today we are talking about topics related to the parents. Yesterday we discussed the point that learning starts at home and that early intervention starts at home as well, because it's not only education, it's also the parents and the family who are learning their children a lot. And today we are talking about the cooperation with parents from the point of view of a kind of partnership from the professionals and the parents together.
Chambogo University, Faculty of Special Needs and Rehabilitation, is mandated to train teachers in special needs education.
We have an inclusive education system now, where all the teachers are supposed to learn all bits of skills, including Braille for the blind and sign language for the deaf. And our focus for today is in the area of early intervention. You know, for quite a long time in Uganda, we do not have early intervention for children with disabilities. This has been a good project for us in Uganda, where early intervention for children with, who are deaf and hard of hearing is just starting. And this project we are having, the training we are having right now, focuses on how do we start early childhood education, particularly early childhood intervention for children who are deaf and who have hearing, who are hard of hearing. And you know, for a long time, We don't even have primary schools where children with hearing impairment can be accepted. And very few have now come up, going up to secondary school. So we feel this project where early intervention is really focused on. This early intervention focuses more on parents, involving parents at an early age, particularly children who are born. We need to start from that age. In fact, even before being born, we don't know a person will be deaf. But the moment we realize a child is born who cannot hear, then that is where early intervention starts. Parents are strongly involved in this. And the training we are having right now really focuses on how do we start early intervention for children with hearing impairment. This will start by training teachers in early childhood education. And therefore, parents must be involved. As you found there, we are now focusing on parents. Parents are the first teachers. And therefore, how do we teachers help them to start with the, supporting this child when he is young? By the time he reaches primary school, he is ready for any education.
During the training, parents and guardians were identified as key persons in the early intervention of children with hearing impairment.
Yeah, this training is helping us to find ways of communicating with a child, especially if the assessment has taken place early. A parent will know how to treat the deaf child, how the family should all be involved, especially in learning the communication of the deaf, which is sign language. It is very important for the family, the siblings, the parents to all to learn sign language. And different organizations are doing that, training parents. And the parent at this time, we have learned that it is important for the parent to cooperate with other parents, to encourage each other, to build each other, to share experiences.
Training teachers of sign language in early intervention for children with hearing impairment had an objective of equipping lecturers at Kyambogo University with knowledge and skills as well as guidance on how a syllabus can be developed.
We just realized that since Kyambogo University started a department in 1988, there has never been a deliberate effort to reach out on very young children who are deaf and hard of hearing. What we have been focusing on have been the primary school going children, starting from 6 years onwards. So realizing that maybe for the deaf children who are disadvantaged, by the time they are 6, they have already lost a lot of skills. Their parents have not been empowered because they remain the resource in this country since we don't have facilities for young children who are deaf and hard of hearing. So we realized it was very urgent to start a program on a more sustainable basis, because we have had local initiatives like the parents organizing themselves, and there are a few NGOs who have been running services. But you know, funding for these activities are based on external money, and you can't be sure whether it will be there the next day. So housing a training in a government institution assures sustainability in the long run. I think the most important issue within this training is that we recognize the important roles played by parents. Before, I think we ran a service based on professionals, but we have realized it is not sustainable because there is an outcry in this country that teachers are not seen. They are trained over the years, but you don't see them. But the parents remain parents, whether kids are small or older. So we feel by going down to reach the parents, empower them, listen to their perspectives, how the plans they have for their children, I think it makes education relevant So I think that is the biggest issue. And also to come up with the new trends. I think everywhere in the world, many things have changed. There are global issues. So when we come to the training from the expertise from Kentalis International, I think this is a golden opportunity for Uganda. We get updated literature, we get experiences, success stories from other parts of the world, which we incorporate. So I think when we take off, I think it gives us a very good start and which can be sustained to improve our service delivery.
The deaf children and the parents. First of all, the parent who gets a deaf child, in most cases, is a hearing parent. And the communication becomes very difficult because all parents communicate with their children from day one. So in Uganda, assessment many times does not take place early. So a parent realizes her child is not responding to audio noise and is not speaking. That's when they are alarmed, and that's when they realize the challenge. Many parents are devastated. They think their child is different, especially sometimes when it is the firstborn, or even when the child comes in the middle. It is very devastating for the parent because they cannot communicate with their child just like they communicate with the rest.
As a university, I think we have got roles. First of all, we have got the teaching role, make sure that we impact knowledge, but we have got a community service, corporate social responsibility to assist our communities where we live. So beyond us here, we train our students to go and work with the communities. So we believe as one of the spillover from this will be our teachers going out, starting initiatives. We have got so many kindergartens. Kyambogo University is already affiliated to 23 training institutions for nursery school teachers. So we believe this knowledge will go and filter into all those trainings, and in the long run, I think many children will be reached within the short time possible. And the other issue is research. There is a lot that has not been tackled in this area. So when we have a course like this one, it will stimulate thinking on so many aspects, like maybe what adjustments do we have to make in policy. All that will come through the research. As we work through this, this course, I think our students will come with new problems from the communities and we shall integrate them into the teaching. At the end of the day, I think services should be improved for young children who are deaf and hard of hearing.
Uganda National Association of the Deaf, a non-government and voluntary organization bringing together all categories of deaf people in Uganda, recently held a training on how to equip trainers for the deaf people on how to communicate effectively.
This training started way back, and I wouldn't call it just a training, but I would call it a resource workshop. Why do I call it so? It has been an opportunity for us to put our knowledge together and in order to formulate a manual that will help us when training some community facilitators, as well as also these community facilitators to be able to transfer this knowledge to the parents of deaf children on how to take care of these children, how to provide services for their children right from home, and then also knowing about how they can utilize the different services in the community. So from Monday, we've been focusing on developing a module, a training module, and we've gone step by step with the training guidelines, and a lot of focus has been on how to mobilize parents, how to deal with the emotions of the parents that come up as a result of having a deaf child in the family. Because we know that when a parent gives birth to a deaf child, and they are diagnosed deaf, usually these parents encounter a lot of mixed reactions and feelings. So it's an opportunity for the parents to feel it is not the end of the world for this child, but this child has a future, and encouraging this child to fit into the community, dealing with their emotions and parents in order to encourage them to take care of these children. And there are also so many other topics that we have in this training module. All these are with the objectives of giving parents an overview of sign language and encouraging parents also to learn sign language, and also seeing how they can be able to interact with a child, giving them the opportunity of inclusion in the community and also participation. So in general, this workshop has been very, very important. It is an important tool for helping link parents to their deaf children. Actually, from observation in this workshop, we are trying so much to build on creative tools where we can make sure that the deaf child participates in the community and also benefits from the community, because this deaf child starts to enter the community right from family. The first entry point is not school but the family. So if the child is well integrated into the family, it makes the step of going to school easier, and also mainstreaming themselves in the wider community becomes easier. If we can remember, yesterday the world was celebrating 25 years from the time that the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons was ratified, and the Convention to the Rights of Children. And the theme was focusing so much on innovations, new ideologies on how we can encourage children to be mainstreamed or included in the community, and then also their rights being heard. So one important thing highlighted is education for deaf children. So I think it's an opportunity for us to innovate ways through which we can mainstream deaf children into the community. So we are just imagining that the future for deaf children right now, if we are imagining the future for deaf children right now, it is the best way to do it. We need to think about the future of the deaf children starting from now. So we shall be focusing so much in the area of innovations for deaf children to make sure that they have a better future. We've learned a lot from the past 25 years on promoting the rights of deaf children. So we are just moving a step forward in the same direction. So I would really encourage parents from this training to know just one important thing, that any child is a victim to hearing loss. So one important thing we need to carry on is prevention, because it's much better than cure. It is always better to be ready for anything in life. So what is important for us, and what we have noted, is that parents who are expecting children, let's go for antenatal care. It is important for us to attend this antenatal care, because we've seen some of the causes of deafness are much related to prenatal stages of pregnancy. Mothers don't go for antenatal care, and it has led to an increase in the number of deafness in the country. So let's prevent deafness from happening by going for antenatal care. And then when a child is also born, let's ensure that there is diagnosis and identification of these deaf children. Let's ensure they're in good health, their sight is in good health, their hearing is in good health, and not wait when it is too late to intervene. So this project we are talking about is on early intervention, and it talks about also identification of deafness as early as possible, so that we can see how best to help this child to live life positively. And I think that is the best way to go. Pre-education. But for deaf children, you could ask yourself what happens in this age of 0 to 6. These children don't have a language at all in our country. They grow up to that age without communication skills, and the parents don't know as well what to do with them. So that's the reason we are focusing on this gap, because if these children are identified early and then taken to school early, it can help us handle issues of sign language communication skills. So Kyambogo University is focusing in this area, and much as we have early childhood intervention programs for hearing children, for deaf children, it is just starting now. Because in Uganda, usually the ordinary age, ordinarily a child is in primary 7 at the age of maybe 10, 11, 12. But when you compare this situation with that of deaf children, usually they reach primary 7 at the age of 17, 16. It is because they start school late. So this project, we really hope will be helpful if we spread it out and use it adequately. Within 15 years, we know we shall have reached somewhere in addressing issues regarding early childhood intervention. But for now, we are just starting off, developing manuals on how to train parents, and also instilling positive skills amongst the parents, accepting deaf children as they are caring for a deaf child, teaching the deaf children sign language. Those are the steps we are taking in the area of early childhood intervention.
Uganda National Curriculum Development Center, operating under the Ministry of Education and Sports, orients teachers on developed materials for teaching and learning process, including the deaf.
After identifying that all the curriculum materials that have been developed for many, many years were not addressing the needs of learners with special educational needs. It was just general curriculum materials, and learners with special educational needs were left alone, aside. So recent, 5 years back, the desk of special needs education was brought on board by the council at National Curriculum Development Center, where I was taken there as the first specialist while we opened up actually that desk. And now we are 2 specialists, myself and there is another one, Generous. But we've been given a department whereby in future, if funds allow, we will be like 4, at least 4 specialists. And we will be the Department of Special Needs at NCDC. But our main task there is to look at the curriculum development, materials, and then adapt the material which has been developed, and then make it user-friendly, especially teachers and learners with special educational needs. And so far, the Desk of Special Needs Education has a in collaboration with the Ministry of Education, with the help of USAID. We adapted the curriculum materials of primary 1, 2, 3, and 4. As I talk now, we have the teacher's guide, supplementary guide for primary 1, primary 2, and primary 3 in primary schools who are handling learners with special education needs. And the rest of the adaptations are still there. We're waiting funds. If funds allow, then we shall continue with the adaptations. Make sure that all the curriculum materials actually meet the expectations of learners with special educational needs. And during the reform, the secondary curriculum review has been going the reform. That process, the special needs teachers were brought on board, and during the development, issues concerning learners with special needs education were also brought on board in all the running areas in the second during the reform. So at least that has been done for the first time. It is an actual achievement so far, and at NCDC to see that learners with special needs education are catered for.
Concerning deaf learners, especially in the primary schools, not much has been developed, mainly due to challenges faced by National Curriculum Development Center.
Of the deaf learners, I can't say that so far there is something special that has been developed for deaf, but we developed some readers. There were general readers, but we made sure that there were some. They are not yet in schools as I talk now, but we have them in a soft copy form. We are still undergoing development, but we came up with different levels of those readers, and beginning from the primary level, primary 1, 2, and 3. And in those readers, we have the version of sign language, and that version has the picture, there are words, and then there are signs within the book, so that if the deaf learner gets that reader, is able to see that this is a boy, and the picture of a boy, and the word boy is here, then this is the sign for boy. That is something small so far, which I think the deaf, once those readers are put in schools, then the deaf learners will also benefit. But you see, we are just beginning. I believe that if funds allow, we are in position to do a lot, because the deaf are also part of the group of learners we are catering for. But not so much has been done, not only for the deaf, but even for other learners. But we believe we will do much in future if we get funding.
Disability is not inability. Deaf children, if educated, can learn and achieve just like any other person. However, this can be attained when early intervention is embarked on by the parents, teachers, and the community where the deaf children are. I talked to the only successful doctor of sign language grammar in Africa who was born deaf. He shares with us his experiences.
My sign name, that's my sign name. I'm called Dr. Sam Lutalo Chiyinji. I'm a deaf person. I'm a Ugandan. I was born deaf. Of course, up to now, I'm deaf, and I've been educated as a deaf person. In my family, I'm the only deaf person. And my education, I had to go to Kenya, a school called Mumias, very known for teaching the deaf people. That was in 1970s. And as you know well, during that time, there was no good education for the deaf in Uganda. So I was taken to Mumias in Kenya and had my primary education there. I also went to Nyangoma, where I had technical training in one of the technical schools, and I did my education electronic engineering. And as you know, in those two schools I went to, we're using sign language, Kenyan sign language, not Ugandan sign language. Yeah. So when I completed that, I came back to Uganda with Kenyan Sign Language, and I managed to take on Ugandan Sign Language. My education experience has not been a very easy one, but I've managed to progress to what I am. I realized that what helped me much was communication. I was able to communicate and acquire language in sign language, and that was much easier. So when I wanted to progress when I was in Uganda, it was not as possible as it was for me in Kenya. But I got involved in community work working with the hearing people here in Uganda and trying to sensitize the hearing community on our needs. I got an opportunity, I got some funding from Britain, of course with the Kyambogo University also. They combined efforts to help me to pursue a PhD. My topic is about sign language grammar, or the structure, the entire structure of sign language, Ugandan Sign Language, and I did it between 2002 to 2006. So my data is covering that period. Yes. So I can say that I'm the only one in Africa with this title in this field. I have about 8 different sign languages that I can use ably. I have the Kenyan, because I was educated in Kenya, as I told you. I have a Ugandan Sign Language. Because what I want to say is actually that sign language is connected to the community of the deaf. And thirdly, I know the Tanzanian Sign Language because I've done a number of trainings, even at Kyambogo. We have had a cooperation with the Tanzanian Deaf Association. I also know American Sign Language because I have so many scholar colleagues that we share a lot of work. I have Danish Sign Language. I think between 1992 and 1998 we were working with the Danish deaf persons. So I can also sign Danish Sign Language. I also want to say that I know British Sign Language because that's where I've done my studies, advanced studies for some time. So I have a number of sign languages that I can use in communication. As you asked, Ugandan Sign Language, these languages differ because they are connected to the visual perception of the environment. For example, that sign is food. In the whole world, you'll find that many people will have food put in the mouth. So that can be a universal sign because you will not put food at the back of your head. It's always put food inserted in the mouth. So you can find it in many signs. But there's another one, mother, like that one. In Kenya, you sign mother like that. Uganda, that is a different sign. So these two signs are very different. And Kenya, well, as you put your palm straight, the Ugandan, you make a fist on your chest. And if you, American Sign Language, that is mother. You can see the differences. And British, they will sign mother. But it's one word, mother, same meaning, but different hand formation. So as I was growing up, I really loved languages, to learn so many languages. So those are the differences that I can state. And my writing of Luganda and other languages is still below average, but signing I do a lot. And so in my family, when they are talking in Luganda, I hardly understand what they are saying.
The deaf have different sign languages they use for communication. As an expert in sign language grammar, I asked him if there is any possibility of adopting a universal language for the deaf.
Yeah, you are right, and that's a good question. International sign language or universal sign language. I talked about the differences in 8 languages, as I gave you the examples, but when you refer to international sign language, that is not practically possible due to the diversity of cultures. If I'm signing sandwich, you know sandwich? A sandwich, that's how I'll sign it, sandwich, okay? In Uganda, when you mention a sandwich to many Ugandans, they will not understand what you are talking about. What is a sandwich? So it's connected to the culture. Rather, you'd talk about matoke, Okay, so if I'm signing matoke, many deaf people will understand in Uganda. But if I use the same sign to a deaf community outside Uganda, they'll still ask what that means. So I'm saying that each language is connected to a specific environment, and the phonological makeup of a word is, and all the morphological as well, is connected to a particular atmosphere or environment. Although you'll find some examples, the form may stay the same, but the morphological makeup of a word will change according to the environment. So I think having a universal international language is not possible due to culture, due to the environment, plus other issues that may be prevailing.
The government of Uganda, through various policies and programs that support disabled persons, has recognized international agencies that have extended support to people with special needs.
Kentalis is a Dutch organization. Mainly we're operating also in the Netherlands. It's a nationwide organization taking care for people with hearing impairment and people who are deaf. So we are in the fields of care and education, both fields. We have a very long tradition and a very long history of also supporting schools and universities and teacher training colleges abroad in different countries all over the world. And that's also what brought us here to Uganda. Our main goal is to improve the standards of deaf education also in Africa, or also here in this region actually. So yeah, one of the things we are doing is trying to start earlier with the children in the periods that they are more receptive to education and to acquiring language. So that's why we started the project here in Uganda. We think the best way to give deaf people and hearing impaired people a better future is by improving their education, so that they in future can live independent lives and they are not dependent on other people or on support of the government. So mainly we are focusing on improving the quality of education to raise the standards.
Yes, Kentalis is joining efforts with us, and I think the area of early intervention is an important one. And for my own experience, I did not have effective communication or timely communication from my family as I was growing up. I was taken to school early enough, but I had to go back to the family, but with no help. So early intervention, I think, in the African view, is very important. Give an example of South Africa. Yeah, in South Africa, one of the universities in South Africa, I've read they have such a program on early intervention. I would like to say that if this goes on well, we will be the second one in Africa to start on early intervention for the deaf children. And this is a very important opportunity because it opens the doors to many opportunities of a deaf child. And I encourage our university, encourage the community to take up on this, because when the child is young, he's exposed to many things. I can draw from my own experience that I was helped early enough, at least, to be what I am now.
In the Netherlands, we already diagnose children in the first week after they have been born. So already, say within the first week, we know whether a child is hearing or has some kind of hearing impairment. So that means that we can start early, and that also gives us good perspectives to better education. Here in Uganda, it's very common that children are not attending school before the age of 6, sometimes even much later. And that means that you miss out a very important period in the educational life of a child, because at a young age the brain is still very plastic, it's very receptive for new information. So that means that very young children can acquire a language very easily. And then it doesn't matter whether that's spoken language or whether it's sign language, but it's crucial to start as early as possible. And maybe more about the project over here. Like I said, in the Netherlands we have quite some facilities also to do the follow-up. Here in Uganda it's a bit more of a challenge. So in the program which we are running here, we have a threefold of different subjects which we are targeting. First, we are working together with UNAT, the Association of the Deaf, in creating awareness and supporting parents at a very early age. Secondly, we are working with the Ugandan Institute of Allied Health and Management Sciences, the former Mulago Paramedical College, in training clinical officers and medical staff in doing the diagnosis, in identifying children very early. And the third one is our project with Jambogo University, in which we are trying to develop a curriculum and training some staff, some lecturers of the university in teaching new teachers in early childhood education, early childhood development.
The training for early intervention is expected to significantly bring positive change to teachers, parents and curriculum developers in assisting deaf children to attain education.
From this training, I have acquired skills which I'm going to impart to the parents. Skills of how to treat a child who is having a hearing impairment at an early stage, at a much earlier stage, and even as the child goes on, because this program is targeting teachers who are going to teach deaf children in the early years. So I'm ready to share with the parents in the organization about the importance of learning communication in sign language so that they can communicate with their child from the basics, and also the importance of education and the importance of cooperating or loving their children and not discriminating them, because they are part of the family and their children. The only problem is that they can't hear, but they can do everything.
This training actually has given me a lot of, I've acquired a lot of skills, especially when it comes to early intervention of learners who are hearing impairment. And I've acquired skills on how to guide parents, because when we move out in the field, or sometimes in our offices, when parents come in to get views on how they can help their learners, their deaf learners and other learners with special educational needs. And in this particular training, I've actually got a lot of skills and information on how I can actually guide parents, especially on how to in the area of early identification of learners with hearing impairment, and how best I can actually help guide them when they come to my office, or when I go into the field and meet them there, how I can actually guide them And basically, that's what I have got from this particular training.
The government of Uganda, through various policies and programs that support disabled persons, has recognized international agencies that have extended support to people with special needs. Raising a deaf child is not a simple task when parents and people around them lack sign language communication skills.
Communication is very important. Every parent communicates with their child, as I already said, from day one. So when there is no communication, it's very difficult to impart skills to a child. Skills as simple as sit down, eat this, what do you want? Those very simple first sentences in a child's life. The parent will not know how to communicate, and many parents sometimes stigmatize deaf children when they have not yet learned how to live or how to communicate with deaf children. So I also experienced challenges as a child was growing. Every stage has its challenges. When they are still toddlers, when they are grown into children, they like to play around, you don't know how to tell them not to do this and that. When they are adolescents, it becomes even much harder because they are changing, their bodies are changing, so many things are taking place in their I don't know what to call it, but their body changes. There is sex education, which many parents even fear to impart to hearing children with whom they can speak. But now to the deaf child, how do you tell them about all these body changes that change a child from childhood to maturity? So I'm lucky I learned sign language and I communicated well with my daughter through it all. She's a big girl now. But many parents are facing such challenges. Many couples have even separated due to a deaf child, due to the deafness of a child. They are stuck with communication, they are stuck with education. Right now Uganda has a few schools, but in our times there weren't even many schools and we had to take children to Kenya. But right now they have vocational skills to learn here. Otherwise parents are faced with social skills, imparting social skills to a child, imparting knowledge about their culture, imparting different skills as children grow. And worst of all, the education, they are stuck.
That are really the hard cases, and we see it too often when we are here. Children who are abandoned by their parents, maybe dropped just at an orphanage while we know that parents are still living, and that's all because parents are not aware of the capabilities of deaf people. They think deaf people are dumb, they don't know anything, they cannot learn anything, but that's not the truth. Deaf people are equally capable as normal hearing people. But their needs, their educational needs are somehow different. For instance, sometimes they need sign language, other children need hearing aids. So you have to adapt your educational system to meet with their needs. And that's also a challenge. And especially in Uganda, for instance, we can see Uganda has the policy of inclusive education. That means that children can go to school anywhere. So for us it means that a lot of people have to be trained on how to deal with hearing impaired children. And that's really challenges we have to face and which Uganda has to face. But we are in the same kind of project because we are starting this. The Curriculum Development Center and Jambogo are also finding ways how to improve the curricula. So I think we are starting at the right moment with this now.
A big thank you to the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development, Ministry of Education and Sports, as well as various agencies for ensuring that people with disabilities are not left out in development programs. The government of Uganda, through various policies and programs that support disabled persons, has recognized international agencies that have extended support to people with special needs. That's all we had for you this week. Don't forget to tune in next week, same time. On behalf of the entire production crew of Education Forum program, my name is Maureen Natkunda, wishing you the best of the week ahead.